It is another edition of the On the Mic podcast, and I would say that I'm happy to talk to him, but I think he's just happy because I think there's a puppy involved, coming off a huge win in Vegas. And I'm not going to sit here and lie. I stayed up all night to make sure I watched this man fight, and what a fight it was. Brown Bear, Devin Clark, you're always gracious with your time with me. It's always great to talk to you. How are you, man?
Oh, I'm doing good, man. Thanks for having me on again. Yeah, just getting home, just got home yesterday or last night, and yeah, it feels good coming home and relaxing.
Was there a puppy at the house yet?
There was. My wife had the puppy ready, and he's here. So,
That's awesome. What did we name him?
well, his name's Luca right now. See, he's not puppy. He's 5 months.
Okay.
So his name's Luca, but I think we're gonna change it. We're not sure what we're gonna change it yet.
I love it. I love it. Well, man, you got back in the win column in a big way. I know you and I have had like these conversations about how it's time that you're ready to string these wins together and really make a run. You talked about it after your fight. I know you've not too recently, but I know you've changed camps. What was it in this fight that felt different to you than in your most recent fights?
I felt more in the moment, and that's kind of like a team thing. The whole team knew, my coaches and my training partners, we knew what happened last fight. Part of that was mental, part of it was injuries or whatever, but we really doubled down on the mental and like the intent when we're training and sparring, and just having that intent when I'm training, and it carried over into the fight pretty big. That was a huge component in the fight. It's just having those natural transitions and those natural instincts to score points and get shots off and strikes.
Now, in the first round, the broadcast table talked about how during fighter meetings, had talked about wanting to put a nasty streak together. Before I interview any fighter, I go back, the morning of and rewatch their fight, no matter if it happened the day before or whatever. And I definitely saw it. And I definitely saw it in the final 10 seconds when you let it all go. I think a lot of fighters do that. But you yourself, if you were to, kind of look back and reflect and evaluate, do you feel you put that nasty streak that you're truly looking for, or is there another level you can get to?
Yeah, 100%. The intent was there, and that's what we were training. The intent to hurt him, the intent to win the rounds, and we won every round, and that's because that's how we trained. Even if I get scored on, I have to get those points back, and I did that every time in that fight. I got the points back, and we stuck to the game plan. The game plan was not to get in a kickboxing match with this guy. I have a lot more striking than I showed that night, because it's getting so much better, and we're in better position and stuff like that. So I had a lot of opportunities, but stuck to the game plan, get to his hips, and it wore him out. He thought that was going to wear me out. The commentators thought that was going to wear me out, but that's the style that I can fight. I can fight like that all night long. And not a lot of people can do that, especially in this division, and also have the footwork that I had and being quick. No, not a whole lot of people are moving like that.
No, not many at all. And I think you utilize all of your tools and your martial arts, obviously successfully, but I think you use them in a very productive and kind of thought out way. So I like, you kind of talking about your training there. This division, obviously Jamal Hill is the champion, but it's like you give it 2 weeks and you don't know what's happening at 205.
Yeah.
At heavyweight, I feel the division's been kind of like backed up for the last 5 years, and hopefully now we'll get some movement back and forth. But with your division, and we've talked, and you've talked about wanting to put these string of wins together. What do you feel is necessary in 2023? Because we're talking about, just starting off this year, for yourself to really make a statement in this division.
Staying consistent and fighting like I fought the other night, and getting the right matchups. I think the right matchups are very important at this point. It'd be nice to fight some top 15 guys that, in my opinion, don't belong there. You got Khalil Roundtree, I think, at like 13. That'd be a good fight. And then you got, I think, Volkan Ozdemir. He's up there too. Those are a couple of fights that I'm really interested in, and fights that I'd be confident in. So it's just, stuff like that, staying consistent and getting these wins in the off season. Keeping my intent in the off season and training hard, even when I'm not in camp.
Now, you and I have had the opportunity to talk about so many different things inside the cage, outside the cage. So I always love having a chance to talk to you because I think we can talk about some serious stuff. I'm not going to get serious on you yet, but I will ask you. You fought a few hours later than normal, and obviously, a road to the UFC was a big reason for that. Kind of capitalized on the Asian market, but for you, was it weird for you? I mean, because I'm not gonna lie to you, Devin, it was hard for me to stay awake, but I knew I was like, I wanted to reach out, I wanted to have you on the show if all went well, and I was like, I got to stay up for the fight. Was there anything different for you on fight night, having to fight just a few hours later?
It felt the same once we got to the apex. But other than that, fight day was a lot different, and I really, really, really did not mind having a late fight and being able to sleep in all day. We have time. It's not like, most of the time it's like you wake up at 9 o'clock in the morning, like, oh, I get my mind ready for the fight right now. I got to eat, I got to get my eating in, I got to get a shakeout in. Like a lot of times you just don't have enough time, or you feel like you don't have enough time. But this one was perfect. We didn't leave the hotel until 8:30 at night. So I was able to wake up at probably like 10 o'clock, get a little breakfast, get a shakeout in, and then I still took like a 2.5 hour nap, then played some video games, and just kind of chilled. Then I put my music on. I was able to just, turn up to the fight at my own, on my own time. So it was super nice, and I enjoyed it. And I talked to Jon Jones. He's used to fighting late, so and he's told me over the years a few tips on that, how to handle fight day when you don't fight until that night. So I took a few of those tips, and a lot of that's how you eat and what kind of stuff you eat and stuff like that, and just how to make the time go by efficiently.
Yeah, and to that also, and I'm going to ask you about John here, as I feel like I always do every time we talk. But how much do you read into being, because on this side of the business, right? On this side of the sport, you have MMA shows like myself where we just want to interview and talk to the fighters. You have some people who want to interview fighters just for headlines. I'm more of just the honest conversation. But then you also have the betting side of this business where everyone's a gambling expert and everyone's this and they're giving out picks. And you came into this fight as an underdog. First question is, do you read into that shit? Because I don't feel like you should. And I know, and we're not going James Krause conversation here, but I feel, and I'm going to agree with Joe Rogan, I do think it's bullshit. I do think fighters should be able to bet on themselves. When you do a little, basically insider trading, that shouldn't ruin it for everyone. But I know some fighters, and you're not a young fighter per se, age-wise, but you're a veteran of the sport. Some who are young in this game, they'll be like, "Oh, it's the underdog," and that mentality will carry them, and sometimes it hurts them. So, do you pay attention to the lines and stuff like that?
A little bit. Like I knew I was an underdog, and but it didn't bother me. At this point, it doesn't bother me. I can't change how I fight based on what the so-called experts think's going to happen, because it's a fight at the end of the day. Like, look how wrong these experts were on this fight. Like, I had a lot of people lost money because they, had me losing in their parlay or whatever. And I hardly even know what that means. I just know people get pissed when they lose their parlay because of me. And I know a lot of people won money because, they bet on the underdog. But that's just having confidence in my game and confidence going into that fight, knowing that I can beat him and knowing how I can beat him. So at the end of the day, what they say really doesn't matter because they think they have stuff figured out. But a fighter's a fighter, but a fighter is also a human, and you can change stuff, and you could change how you train. You could, adapt. So it's, and you see it all the time. Fighters go on a slump, or even better yet, think about how baseball players, you have Hall of Fame baseball players that go on a slump for half a season, and then all of a sudden they end up winning the World Series. It's sport, and we're human. Like, so it's hard. It's hard, and it's funny when people message me after the fight, and they get all mad. I had one guy message my wife, and a minute after the fight, he messaged her saying some awful stuff just because he lost his parlay. Like, bro, like if it's that, if you're that hard up, don't be betting it. It's a chance.
Wild. I don't need. I mean, if you want to share, but I know Sean Brady had something similar. I guess Bilal Muhammad on Joe Rogan's podcast said that Sean Brady was saying that people were messaging him saying, if you beat Bilal, we're going to bury you in the desert and stuff like that. And they were messaging his wife. That's crazy to me. Here's where I stand on betting. It's a fight. One shot can change everything. In a very rare moment, a takedown could change everything, pop something out or whatever. You just literally never know. If I'm going to bet the Lakers and the Thunder tonight because LeBron's going to break the record, I have an idea of who's going to win that game. You know what I mean? But in a fight, no matter where the skill sets are, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, I always go, anything can happen. Is 50-50. I don't care about betting lines. And that's where I stand on it.
It's true because a fight's much different than, like you said, much different than basketball and stuff. You kind of know where people's skills are, and sure, people might have an off night, but there's other people on the team to pick them up. They're having an off night. In the fighting, if someone has an off night, there's no one there to back them up. It's there, so they end up losing or whatever. And so it's definitely unpredictable. Definitely unpredictable.
Well, first off, I want to say it's embarrassing when I have to say this, but apologies that there's, morons out there who say stuff like that, whether it be to you or to your wife, which is even more inappropriate. Do you get more congratulations from family, fans, and friends than you do people messaging you about their bets?
Oh, 100%. 100%.
Okay.
There's definitely way more support than there are haters. And that's something that every athlete needs to keep in mind. There's people out there that love you and support you, and there's always going to be someone that hates on you just because they can't beat you, or they lost a bet or something like that. Like I had a guy this morning on my I usually go through my message requests and tell people thank you and stuff like that. One guy's, and I had like a question pull up on my story yesterday, and some guy said, why is your fight IQ so low? It's just like, you got to laugh at that. Cause and I'll probably do a story or something explaining it. But like, I have a decent fight IQ. I feel I've won a lot of decisions, and you don't win a lot of decisions with a low fight IQ. I know where I'm at in the fight, and I know what points I need to win the fights. And like the other night, I got that takedown at the last 10 seconds. I knew I needed that, or I thought I did. Then I looked at the stats. I didn't really need that. But I know how to win rounds, and I know when I'm down rounds. So it's like, that's fight IQ to me.
I would turn and look at your fight back in 2020 when, and I would consider you a friend. When I haven't been happier for you is when everyone thought Alonzo Menifield was going to just run through that fight, and you just completely, that's fight IQ. Like that is legitimate fight IQ. Now, see, you're a lot better than me because I'm petty. So I'd be like, tell me about your fight IQ. That's how I would have responded. And they're like, what do you know, and what should I do differently? Most of the time, then you'll get the FUs, you'll get the block buttons. But when you turn the question on them, it's quite crazy to see how these people react. But I think you're in a very good place. And also being with Elevation Fight Team now, I mean, we talk often about fights and game plans and techniques and all this other stuff, but so much of it is the people around you. I don't have to tell you, it's management, coaches, friends, family. I mean, you and I have had conversations about all those things that I just listed. Now being at Elevation Fight Team, which I'm not just saying this because you're here, but I am like such a fan of what you guys do at Elevation. I love all the coaches, even though I've never talked to any of them. I've only talked to a few fighters on the team, but there's so many things I like. Like when it's an Elevation Fight Team fight, I'm like, this is going to be a hell of a fight. This is going to be a hell of a fight. It's going to be a loud corner, and that fighter is not coming in unmotivated and unsupported. So moving to Elevation, what was that like for you, and where would you say you are now?
It was a hard decision, of course, leaving a gym that I had been at for 5 or 6 years or whatever, Jackson Wink. than a lot of relationships and stuff like that. But I went for 1 week. I went to Team Elevation. And I was just kind of trying it out. That was the first gym I went to. I was looking for different gyms, and I knew with 1 or 2 classes with Vinny and Cody that this is something special here, something different. The way the coaches think and the way the fighters respond to it, it's on a different level, and they know it, and that's they're never settling, always trying to advance, always trying to get better, and also communicating with the fighters, and and in some cases they have to treat some fighters differently than others, and they're and they do that. So it was a really good transition. Not saying it was like an easy transition, because obviously you have to build relationships, build bonds, learn how to communicate with each other. It's not always as simple as do this, do that, and it's how they say it and how you respond. But we're at a level now. This is my 3rd camp with them, and we're really kind of just getting going and really getting that bond cemented, and learning how to communicate with each other, and they're learning me, I'm learning them, and it's starting to work out. As you can see in the fight, a lot of the stuff I did was just it felt natural because we worked so hard on it, and it came together. And then also, while I'm talking about the coaching, so we have Cody Donovan, Vinny Lopez, and then also another one that was in my corner in this fight was Zach Pauga, and he actually fights in a couple weeks here.
Yes.
But he was my main training partner for this fight, and he helped out so much just with that, giving me good looks in practice, and also pushing me mentally, because and I think I said on a press conference too, he's kind of an asshole when he's training, in a good way. Like, he's pushing you, he's not going to let you rest and stuff like that. So that helped me get into that mindset of being, just a little more gritty, a little more of an ass, and it worked out. And then another guy that I have to mention is my mental coach, Caleb Rogers. We doubled down this fight on our mentality, and just letting that dog out. And he did such a good job. And we also do, I do hypnosis with him as well as our, weekly talks and stuff like that. And the stuff works, man. It works. I felt like a totally different fighter this fight than I did last fight. And it was just them as a team, all of them working together. It gelled so good.
That's awesome. And not sure if we've ever hit on that too much, but I know a lot of fighters, some are very for that, some are against it, some are kind of weary about it. Just having a mental coach, listen, I can tell you off air how much a mental coach would help me in my life. But when you're in a sport that is so, and I hate bringing up everything Rogan says, but high level problem solving with severe consequences, and just overall going from Albuquerque to Team Elevation, just everything that has been going on in your career and everything that you're invested in. Why was it important for you to seek out a mental coach and make it something that's a serious part of your camp?
Yeah, I started talking to him or using him, I think, before the Alexander Rakic fight. And I forget, I don't know if that was after I lost to Jan Blachowicz, maybe.
Yeah.
Not sure, but I think I came off a loss or something like that. And it was just like, I was all over the place, because I came into the UFC undefeated, then I lost one, then I won two, then I lost. And it's like, what the heck? I'm supposed to be an undefeated fighter. I'm supposed to be a winner, and it's not quite happening. And when you get some wins and you still think you're the best, you start, some doubt creeps up, and you just try to do anything to make it work and get better and get back to the old you. But after working with him, I realized it's not trying to get back to the old you. It's trying to get to the new you, the future you that can be better than that, and how to be better, and how to handle some of these situations, especially coming off losses. And at this level, sometimes it's hard to believe in yourself and have that confidence. after you've had some of these really tough fights and I've been hurt and, stuff that be career ending for some people, especially when it comes down to the mental and still having confidence after getting fucked up like I have sometimes. So it's a unique thing, but it really takes commitment on the fighter side as well. It's kind of weird at first. You listen to somebody, they're like, okay, you have to do this and this. You're like, well, I can do that already. I know how to do that. But you have to trust your coach. And it's like, yeah, you might be able to do that, but how are you doing it? And how are you getting there? And when you don't know how you're getting there, that's the problem. So now we know how we're getting to each step leading into the fight and exactly what we're doing. And it's really getting yourself programmed to win. You're programming yourself to win, and you have every step dialed in, which as a fighter going into a fight, you're dialed in and you've checked all the boxes that your coach has set for you. Your confidence is going to be out there, my confidence this fight was the best it's ever been because we checked every single fucking box and I knew I could do what I needed to do.
And that you did. I do got to ask you, you mentioned your teammate, Zach Pauga. How do you think he's going to do
I think he's going
on February 18th?
I think he's going to do great. He's hungry. He had that big loss against Mo. It was a tough one. He was winning that fight, and then he got caught. It is what it is. But he don't care. He's hungry and he's training hard, and he's a special individual when it comes to fighting. He just has a knack for it. And he's a really good athlete. I mean, going from being a police officer or NFL guy to a police officer, now he's fighting. I think he also played a little rugby. So he's just game. He's game.
What hasn't he done, right?
What's next? Ice skating.
You also mentioned Jon. I mean, we're about a month away, and obviously, you fought on the same night that Fedor Emelianenko retired. Some say, like Dana White, that it should have happened a few years ago. But we're now at this point where people are saying if Jon goes in and beats Ciryl Gane, like there's no conversation. Like, sorry, Khabib, we know you're undefeated. Sorry, Mighty Mouse. Sorry, George St. Pierre. Sorry, everybody. Jon just went in and did the damn thing.
Yeah.
I know there's so much that. There's so much value in having two belts, whether it's simultaneously or at one stage of your career and then another belt at another stage, like Jon is looking to do. But if Jon is able to go in and beat Ciryl Gane in March, what does that define his legacy to you?
I mean, for me, it's what it already is. I mean, I hate when people try to compare him to everybody else because, I mean, you look at the stats, you look at the belts, like nobody's done that. How are you going to compare Khabib to that when he hasn't done that? I think he defended his belt, 3 times? Yeah. How is that comparable to what Jon did? You know what I mean? Like, yeah, he was really good and he's from Russia. Cool. But to try to put him in the same conversation with Jon is just silly. Now, if he would have kept going for another 10 years and did what Jon did, okay, that makes sense. But Jon's been on the top for years and years and years, and he's had breaks, and he's still come back and won. And he's one of the most gifted minds in MMA. And people they kind of overlook that sometimes just because he hasn't been active lately, but he's the best. So that, it's the same in my mind after he beats Gane. I know he's going to beat Gane because he's smarter than him and he's better than him.
I don't know when the last time you guys have talked or when you've seen him last, but how do you think he's transitioning from light heavyweight to heavyweight? He looks huge, but
well, he's been transitioning for a while to that. And like I've known Jon since 2016, and he's always been big. People act like he's small. Like, no, he's never been small. He's always been like kind of thick and strong. And I'm a strong guy. He's always been stronger than me. It's Jon's Jon. So people want to say what they want, but he's gonna go out there and whoop this dude. And I don't think the move to heavyweight is gonna hurt him. Like people think that he's small. Like he's not.
No, he definitely doesn't look small. Last one on him, and then I'll wrap this up here with you with a couple more questions if you don't mind. But on last one on Jon, so many people are trying to build this narrative of he tries to beat fighters at their own game. And I would stop first and say he doesn't try. He does beat them at their own game.
Yeah.
But as Cyril Gane has rose to ascension in heavyweight, it's all been about his tricky movement. Stop me if you've heard this about Jon. His tricky movement, the way he gets in and out, and his striking. And so for me, the last question on this fight is, do you think that that's what Jon will want to do, and he'll want to beat Cyril Gane at what he's best at, and that's striking?
I mean, be Gane at his own game. I mean, that's Jon's game. Where do you think Gane learned it? You know,
exactly.
Like, see, people are just silly. Jon's been doing this so long. He's been so good for so long. Like half of the fucking roster got their style from him, and you know they're trying to. Can Jon do that? Can Jon compete with that? He invented that shit. Like, and you know, of course, people did it before him, but to do it smoothly and being again victories at the same time, like, no, Jon's a smooth criminal in that sense.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I wanted to kind of end on a very serious note with you, and I appreciate your time as always. But you were fighting in the first weekend of February. It's Black History Month, and I know that back when in 2020, you and I talked a lot. You taking a stand, taking a knee, raising your fist in the air. I'm curious now because I don't think, Devin, you and I will ever talk about, wow, our country is so great, right? Like look at us all get along all the time. It's never going to happen. But I think too often, and I'm not saying you by any stretch of the imagination, too often athletes will do one thing in the moment and then they'll just reflect back on that. And then they'll be like, well, yeah, I did it in 2020. So what I say in 2023 doesn't matter. No, it very much does matter. And for you, continuing to carry along that message and just the powerful opinions and thoughts that you have towards our country and really towards, I don't want to say Black History Month, but just what it actually means, in this country, especially for you to fight, to kick it all off. And the UFC ran a great promo and it was beautiful. But what does it mean for you to be a part of the UFC and be African American and really try to make a change in this country, in this world?
It's special. I mean, that's when you speak of Black history, it wasn't so long ago where this just really wasn't quite an opportunity, and it wouldn't be so smooth. Of course, Black people were doing it early on in the 50s, 60s. Yet, professional boxers that were really good, but they never got a fair shake. Some of them even got locked up in prison for no reason. I'm lucky to be raised at the time that I'm raised at. I'm a brown kid from Harrisburg, South Dakota, that just went to Las Vegas, Nevada, and fought a dude from South Korea and won on national TV, in front of everybody, in front of the world. It's just a special thing for me to do, and then at the same time to not be hated for it. And the biggest thing is not having my color or my race to be associated with it. It's so much. I'm an American. It was American versus South Korean is what it was. It wasn't a black guy versus whatever. It was an American versus South Korean, which is the beautiful part about it. I represent America at the end of the day. For me, people, like you're saying, people, this country will never be perfect. It never will. And the people will never be perfect. But day-to-day lives can be pretty good. I mean, people get along. I see it every day. Black people, white people, Mexican, whatever. People get along every day, but it's when the media comes along and they have these different agendas and they try to separate people. And half the time, people, on social media, they'll have one stance, this or that, but at the same time, they'll go to the gas station, they'll still give respect to the a person of whatever color and whatever, political party and this and that, because they're not going to ask that right away. So you see people getting along every day, and it's not an issue until it comes to social media and people have to, think they have to put their opinion online, and that their opinion actually matters when you're on. No, it matters when you're in person and how you're treating people in person. Now, if you're being an asshole in person, that's a different thing. But a lot of people won't do that because they're pussies and they don't want to get their ass whooped. So like, there's still respect in this country. I still believe in this country, and I know there's respect because people are still scared to get their ass whooped. So that's where the respect comes from. And it's you have fighters and athletes and stuff like that. They get along because they know the consequence of disrespecting somebody, especially fighters. Like you meet a lot of fighters, and you've interviewed a lot of fighters. They're all respectful people. There's a few that do it for the media and stuff like that. Yeah, Colby Covington, but he's actually a really nice guy, so I've heard, and I believe that. In person, I'm sure he respects a lot of people, because there's consequence if you don't. It's show respect to get respect. That's what my father taught me, and that's what I believe in, and hopefully the world starts to see that too. But it's really hard with social media and this generation. Whatever they see online is, they think it's just, that's what it is. That's what the world is what they tell me online. The world's falling to shit. Like, no, that's not the case. Go out in the world. You can walk to the gas station and not have a problem, no matter what color you are. In most cases, you know what I mean? So I still have faith.
No, that was beautifully put. And yeah, to the Colby thing, I've never interviewed Colby, but I was in a gym when he was in Chicago training for a fight, and like Embedded came in like 20 minutes after us. And before Embedded came, I mean, he walked off the mats and was like, "Hey guys, thanks for coming out." And I'm like there with one person who's like a camera guy, and he's not even like, he's like an amateur camera guy. And this is when I first started covering the sport, and I'm like, "You're welcome." I don't. Why are you thanking me? Like I'm just here. So no, and I think when people cover the sport, they got to understand certain things needs to be done or acted upon in order to get the fight or to act out or whatever. People can talk shit about Conor McGregor all they want and mock him for telling Khabib it's only business. I believe it. You know what I mean? But that's neither here or there. What I want to get you out of here with is you fought twice in 2022. I think you're at a great place with Team Elevation, not just legitimately at a good place. I think where you guys and how you spoke about how you guys are connecting now. You got to fight here in February. You got to win. What's next? I mean, you mentioned a couple names earlier. I would throw out another one I'd like to see, Dustin Jacoby. I mean, there's guys right there in the top 15 that I would love to see you face. When do you want to get back in there?
Not quite sure yet. I definitely want to take a little time off. But in that time off, I also want to stay ready. So I could fight at any time, but family's number one. And I definitely need to spend some time with my family right now. That was a super long camp. I think almost 3 months. I was, back and forth, came home for Thanksgiving, Christmas, and then like one weekend. So that's, that gets to you when you're away. And this, with this fighting, man, you have to become a different person. So I need to change myself again while I'm at home and be that family guy. And I like that guy. I love to be the family guy and be home. My wife and my daughter, they're super important to me. And, so I love the fighting, but I need this time to be with my family and stuff like that. And the fights will come. If I have one more fight this year, I'm fine with that. So maybe, fall or something like that. Definitely don't want to be gone in the winter again. I was gone most of this winter, and this was like our worst winter in 15 years here in South Dakota. We have like 40 some inches of snow on the ground right now. So it's like not a great time to be away and not helping out the houses and stuff like that. So maybe fall or something like that.
I love it, man. So last question here. What are you gonna do with the family now? You got the win. You're gonna take some time off. What are you guys gonna do?
Just live, man. Just live and do family stuff. We got the puppy and stuff like that. So yeah, just hang out. Obviously I still have to train and stuff like that. My daughter, she's in a lot of activities. She has boxing tonight that I'll be going there with her, and then she's got volleyball and gymnastics and jujitsu, and so we stay busy. It's that family life. But before I go, I have to show you the puppy.
Yes, please. This will be the best part. Devin Clark, fresh off his win, getting the puppy, currently named Luca. I guess it's TBD to see if he will, if there will be a name change. But this is a great conversation, and really excited for this. This is like exactly why I do this show.
Come here. Come here.
There he is.
There he is. Say hi, buddy. You see yourself?
How are you, Luca? Look at your
He's a
thoughts
good boy.
on your dad's win.
Yeah.
That is awesome, man, and huge. I gotta ask, how old's your daughter?
She's 9.
9. So she's kicking ass at 9 years old, and
Oh, yeah.
I love it. I love it, man. There. One thing that I've always respected about you is that we could talk fighting, we could talk society life, and we could talk personally, and that's very awesome. It's not someone who like you saying, hey, I'm okay to not fight until the fall. That's great. I think too many fighters, no matter their age, no matter their spot in the sport, they're so set on, I gotta fight as much as possible, get as much money as possible, go vacations, and like it's like you just coming home, being with your family. That's beautiful, man. And I really appreciate your time as always. And hopefully we'll stay in touch in between fights.
Absolutely. I appreciate you having me on again. It's always a good conversation.